Oh, no, we haven't did the intro or anything yet.
I don't really have it.
I mean, there's no intro. The intro is us talking. That's you picking it up and gonna get straight to the talk. Say, well, I got an intro.
Well, so we don't got an intro. I appreciate y'all being here. Shout out to the Black Magic Media for hosting us, putting up this beautiful design. We're gonna get straight to it because y'all attention spans are cooked. Happy Black History Month.
Happy Black History Month. Yeah! Black community solidarity.
For Black History Month, we usually do. I usually do a thing where I go through and we just talk about Black inventors, Black creators, Black
everything,
activists, everything. But we switched it up a little bit. This year we're looking at Black Marronage in the Atlantic world. Marronage.
What's Marronage?
Marronage. Black Marronage. Oh, sorry. Black Marronage.
You just like the way it sounded in the mic. I'm dead.
I did. Black Marronage was a widespread form of resistance throughout the Atlantic world where enslaved Africans would escape from bondage, in slavery, and go to and form autonomous communities. Autonomous communities today look like sovereign, non-state dependent communities.
Okay.
It's more pretty universally in very remote areas.
Okay.
Areas where they would not be able to be easily followed to,
nobody be able to really get to.
Yeah,
from a colonial standpoint.
From a colonial standpoint, also a way you can easily defend, caves, mountaintops, things like that. But what's not well known or what's not well documented, due to being in these very remote places, is like the full extent of the communities that existed. So we're gonna look at two spots. Specifically today, we're looking at. Did we even talk about the Let Me Put You On? We didn't even drop that.
No.
Bar. We didn't drop that bar.
No.
So this series is called Let Me Put You On. Let me put you on, not let me, like Lemme. Let me put you on.
Let me put you on. Yes.
So we putting you on to Black Marronage, looking at Jamaica and America, specifically Virginia.
Okay.
Yup. Got any questions?
No, not so
All
far.
right.
But,
Good. Anyways, getting right into it. So first we look at Virginia, because Virginia, I think, shows
That's what I was gonna ask about anyway.
That's great.
So let's keep going. That's so funny.
That's wonderful. Virginia. So this is the one that was the newest for me because I was not familiar with their game. Listened to about 4 different podcasts that talked about these. One, I ain't gonna lie, I hate to admit, because it's Black History Month, but these 2 white ladies did a great job talking about this community. Like, they actually went through, looked at anthropological research, invited archaeologists to come on and talk to their podcast, and really, spoke truth to power about what was going on. And it's really funny. They're just talking about, slavery and history. They're being, very open, but you can just hear, the white guilt through the mic. And just... It was actually
deep sighs.
It's just kind of weird that you look through the history, what was made illegal was, escaping slavery.
Yeah.
And it's
you could not be a...
It's just that's such a human response to escape slavery. To make that illegal shows the lack of humanity in the oppressors in that community. Boom, Virginia. So in Virginia, what was called the Great Dismal Swamp.
Oh.
Yeah, fucking Great Dismal Swamp, right? Isn't that dope? The Great Dismal Swamp. Unfortunately, in swamps, things of archaeological record do not preserve very well because it's a swamp in Virginia. But you got about 2,000 square miles between Virginia and North Carolina that the swamp covers. Back then, it covered even more. Today, it covers 190 square miles. Back then, it was 2,000 miles, obviously, development and whatnot. However, you have a community of, Virginia was I would say the main state that was getting the most slaves. If you look about, they were coming here and then being transported elsewhere throughout the South and parts of America. So you have an insane amount of history of transatlantic slave trade in Virginia. But what you have here is this unique synchronicity of Black folks going into these communities and maintaining their traditions, maintaining their ways of life, and adapting to new ways of living, oftentimes by finding remnants of previous indigenous sites and communities, or indigenous gardens we talk about. Which is like, indigenous gardens are kind of what's referred to parts of a natural terrain that have been clearly tampered with for the sake of, either domesticating crops or just doing some shit, you know what I'm saying? You find a lot of remains, a lot of features can be found at sites like that. sites like that. I already have an account. So what's interesting about the Virginia one as well, it's this weird race coding that comes with black folks and people that aren't white. So you have this thing called like a maroon community. It's like, what is a maroon?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And a maroon community is just black Marronage. But it's a race-making thing. So black folks, if you're black, you're a slave. If you're a maroon, you're a freedman under the space. So it's a race-making category. Because back then, let's talk 1700s.
Oh, yeah.
In Latin America, you had
slaves
14 different categories of how you could fit into race-wise, color-coded. Your mom might be indigenous, your dad might be white, or half black, or half white, half black, mixed. It's just, I had a crazy color coding
of everything, yeah.
But to intentionally strip them of their culture and the traditions that they were adhering to, they just labeled them maroon and just made it a color-coded thing. Unfortunate. So, what we have here in the Virginia one also looks at, talk about the landscape and survival strategies are like, is relatively unknown. And that's that's why I kind of started this first, because that's kind of it.
That's it?
It's not kind of it, but it's that when you go out and do it, you can't find much in the swamp. Also, in the event that they were living so covert, they wasn't trying to leave nothing behind.
So yeah, there really isn't anything really behind.
If you find a tool, you're gonna dwindle it down until it's, what I'm saying. So they don't have much. But what we do know of, due to historical records, is that these places were labeled as like, probably shouldn't tap in and go in there too much, because you might picked off. But these are places where we have the most resistance. Not in our history. It's not listed in our history books because they don't want people to know that there was black free communities within the Americas.
Oh yeah, and then not only black free communities of black people fighting back,
successfully,
putting up opposition for them. People not being able to actually get them and being like, all right, well, never mind about that.
Yeah.
Or history will never talk about those people.
You have to also look into the integration of enslaved Africans into indigenous communities in those swamps in Virginia area when they were still. Because again, you gotta like think about history. Indigenous folks were controlling most of the landscape all the way up until the late 1800s, right? So it's really them going off to these communities, forming their own thing, and but also learning game from those who already lived there. The reason why I brought it up first, because it really goes to show that this is something that this exact history, right, we're talking about, might not make it into our American textbooks anytime soon. Right.
No, I was about to say I don't actually consider it to make it in there at any time.
Not for like, because it's not factual, not because it's not like enough archaeological record.
No, it
doesn't fit the narrative
that America wants to push towards the history of the
docile Negro, the Sambo, the Uncle Bob, Uncle Tom.
Shoot, not even that. Yeah, the way that they want to turn everybody in the American education system to go towards more of America, because if you told the real history of America, Americans themselves, as we are known, you just be like, wait a minute, these are the bad guys.
Literally the bad guys.
Why am I over here?
And for a country that is built off of freedom, being the largest exporters of violence since their inception of this land is kind of laughable in a sense. Boom. So the maroon community of the Great Dismal Swamp. Talked about why they're called maroons. It's a clear racial tag to describe their culture, identity, but about a boom. We already know that this basically quote unquote invisible, but it's really invisible because they were out there. It wasn't like And that's that you hear people say that their lives and conditions were better on the plantation than these communities. Is like the greatest disrespect you could really give to someone that made it off that plantation living on their own. Because they're saying that like, well, they had access to X, Y, and Z in the plantation, but out there in the swamp, they were out here tucked up from a gangrene and lack of resources. But they were escaping.
Yeah,
slavery,
enslavement.
They
Escaping
wanted to
bondage
hold
under
on
another human being. What? That's not how it's supposed to be.
But that's how people tweak it. They'll be like, well, that's when you look at the American textbooks, it's like they don't really show the true history. They give the ideology that black folks were comfortable being under enslavement.
They say that?
Yes, when I say that, when they do not showcase, they definitely said this. This is like, you're talking about like the history of black education in America. They have definitely portrayed us as being like, once you break a nigga down, he's gonna be comfortable working on the farm type beat. Yeah. Because, but also when I'm bringing back full circle is they do not want to show resistance. They don't want to show that black folks were successfully leading revolts, leading plantation-wide resistance.
It was illegal to educate them. It was illegal.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It was illegal for them to read.
And we get through the Jim Crow era. You're not allowed to talk about freedom fighters, right? You're not allowed to talk about the original freedom fighters, those that were freely fighting these plantations. And when I talk about that, the 1% that is visible, which is kind of funny. It's actually hilarious, but it's like they were getting a lot of their resources through raiding. They would go through, raid a plantation, freedom boys, get resources, and go back up to the hills.
That's true.
Come back down, raid them boys, free a plantation, take resources, hop back out.
That's like not even on Robin Hood. They just taking the resources.
They stay. They are taking their people back and taking their resources back.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
it's not even the white man's resources. Yeah. They're the one cultivating all of that, making it. So it's that. What I'm saying, they don't want to show. They don't want to show the history of resistance, the effectiveness of resistance, and the power within community.
Yeah, no, they don't. They don't like to show that in history.
What we're gonna talk about more in the Latin America communities, that they had this same method of run away, form community, boom, go back down. They're like it's in my mind they gang banging with slave masters, bro. They just banging with them. They coming down. These men don't know. They don't know. These men know guerrilla warfare. They know their land a little bit better. These white men wearing red coats still. You know what I'm saying? They in the muskets and whatnot, walking in a straight line. They're used to that type of warfare. So these boys was really coming down and banging. So we look at history. It talks about the raiding of plantations by these individuals, and they don't know where they go off to.
Woo! I was about to say. I mean, I guess they do know where they go off to, but yeah, in the history books they won't.
Like they generally don't know.
They don't know.
At this time, it's a 2,000 square mile swamp.
Oh yeah, never mind. Yeah,
they generally don't
have
know.
no idea.
But they know that it's freed men, you know. But they don't. But they have tried their best to make sure the history of these freed men, these free communities, Black Marronage does not make your way back into history. That's why most people are probably gonna hear Black Marronage and be like, "What?
What is that?
What's that?"
Black Maroon.
But in the Marronage, and I probably low key should have peeped what Marronage was off of just like by itself.
Oh. I mean, shoot. The power of technology and now.
The power of technology. If only I could spell the first time by sounding it out, but I kept saying Marronage. I'm on the source. That's why. Marronage. Oh, great. Black Marronage is not in the Webster Dictionary because it's such a cool word, such a coined word, specifically for the use of. Interesting.
That's actually quite interesting. Probably going into more of what you were talking about. It's
Merriam-Webster. They're not about that lifestyle of representing Black and brown communities.
Don't know what a Marronage is?
Not at all. And so the reason that you have America's such a fucked place, first of all. But the reason why you don't have these histories is because America has broken every treaty they've ever made with another community on this land. They broke almost every single treaty, all of them. And even if they did succeed a fight, they broke the treaty. So, I do want to highlight that there was more maroon communities just in Virginia. I just wanted to highlight that. I want to talk about like the setup, the scene, the nuance. There's also one in Louisiana, other ones, but there's also ones we don't know of because they're good at their goddamn jobs.
Hey, which is good. We shouldn't know about these locations.
It makes it hard for us anthropologists to go back and do the research, but it also goes to show the importance of authenticating, legitimating black and brown voices for history, because history does such a good job of erasing the culture, erasing the truth. So it's also a reminder that when we go back and do this history, we have to acknowledge what these people's lived experiences from their ancestors and pass down the stories.
Because ain't no way we just went down without a fight. That's total made up fairy tale fantasy. There's no human possibly way we were just getting whipped without a fight. I'm gonna keep it a book.
The first recorded slave revolt rebellion was in American land was 1520. The first law to enable black folks to not be literate happened before 1776, in the 1720s. So it's really more than 400 years, right? It's 400 years of outright slavery and then 100 years post that. But
400 years of trying to convince a people that we are people.
And it's like that's the thing where it's like they had convinced themselves, right, that we weren't people. They wanted to enforce that onto us for subjugation, absolutely.
To subjugate the soul and the mind, the
mm-hmm.
body, all of it. I was about to say. I was thinking about that today in the car. I was like, dang. I was like, they really did enslave the body spiritually. I was about to say some of us are trapped spiritually still because we are confined within these means of this mechanism, this machine that we call America. And then I was thinking about the machine as like, shoot, we are the machine in a sense. I was about to say, like each and every one of us can be the machine. I was about to say, we just have to, I guess, be different.
You have to remove yourself from the problem.
Yeah.
And what we're looking at moving forward is what it would take to recreate a black Marronage or a BIPOC Marronage or just like a BIPOC-focused Marronage or even just a Marronage period where people accept the values of freedom, non-state dependency. That's for another series.
That's another episode, bro.
Any other questions about maroon communities in America? That was a brief overview, but we're going to tag in the other podcasts and whatnot. People want to do their own research. I'm just putting y'all on. So y'all can do your own. I'm putting y'all on. So y'all can do your own research. I'm putting y'all on.
What was? I know you probably didn't look this up, but I would like to say it like that. I would like to know about the maroon communities and like their dealings with like decolonization and stuff like of that time of like how are they trying to change their cultures back.
So at this point, what you're looking at is cultural resistance of the dominant culture because, well, obviously, they're running away, escaping enslavement. I mean, you can't get any more decolonial than leaving and creating your own community. That is like peak. Mm-hmm. But the other part is why you know that they labeled it maroon communities because these individuals were protecting their language in these spaces, protecting their spiritual tradition in these spaces. They were protecting their ancestral tradition in these spaces. So when you look at decolonial, and I almost want to bring up the seven attributes of decolonialism, is that we are at a pace where we are no longer attached to those traditions. Yeah. Even though they're like deep here, right? So they never had whiteness centered. They centered that by leaving. They adopted new alternatives, not new ones, the old ways. They readopted it.
They had all of that already.
They already had it. It was already within them, so that when they talking about decentering whiteness, they weren't speaking English in these spaces, right? You know what I'm saying? Not probably, relatively. But they're living it through not depending on the state, not aligning themselves with ideologies of success through the lens of capitalism, even in that sense, right? Supporting themselves, supporting their communities, and also freeing other people. That part to me was like so instrumental, where they went back and freed other people.
As they should. I was about to say they gotta get the rest of the people. Nobody, no man left behind type of deal.
Yeah, and we're gonna look in the Caribbean where that ended up being. It worked so well that they ended up becoming too big to almost defend.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna. That's a good question. You got any more else about the maroon community?
No, that's all
right. In America, see, we got more specifically in the South. Obviously, there's no mountains for real. So swamps were definitely a chosen space for that. Boom. Moving on to the Caribbean. So one thing I want to know is that these black maroon communities, black Marronage communities, existed in everywhere there was colonialism. Everywhere there was colonialism. And you had it from indigenous folks who were enslaved first before we got brought over as enslaved Africans.
Right.
And if you look at any country that had enslavement, you can find the remnants of the Marronage community, or the remnants of the first indigenous people. But when you go into these spaces, people come from there, you ask them what happened, and they're like, "Oh, we were taught that they were all wiped out. We were taught that they're no longer here anymore." But we got the internet now, so I found them niggas. I found them niggas.
I was about to say that's history. That's erasure history type of
But it's not really gone.
Yeah, no, that's just history that is put there to
not in our textbooks.
Yeah, it's just a block out, your mind from trying to go.
And you know what's really funny?
Else.
You know who used to own a major textbook, a company in America? Ghislaine Maxwell's dad.
Really?
Mm-hmm. A conversation for next time. So looking into, which is kind of like their very public view of the greater corruption going on, obviously. Anyways, the Caribbean. The Caribbean was a unique place because Caribbean, I think, had a better environment for this type of like Marronage community with the mountains and the waters and remote islands and whatnot. But what's also different is that the Caribbean has a longer process of treaties, revolution, and rebellion, and like really expelling colonial powers, where America didn't get that opportunity. It just doubled down and kind of concretized into legal law. And so, look at Jamaica, you have these communities, societies that really organized into states. And Jamaica, and like Virginia and Louisiana, they're more like small bands, right?
Yeah,
They're not organizing. But these Johns, they're states to the point in which they didn't lose the fight. America, the British and colonial settlers had to come in and have a treaty with these guys.
Okay. Basically, like giving up in a sense. Yeah.
But the treaty was mostly coded around, like, stop fighting and stop, like, raiding these plantations.
Okay.
Like, you gotta stop raiding these plantations. And they were like, probably not.
Yeah, what?
Probably not.
Stop raiding the plantations.
Probably not.
No.
Probably not. So they kept doing it. They kept on that. And the history of Caribbean resistance is more well documented because of these relations of treaties and the eventual expulsion of colonial powers from these things that happened way later on.
Okay.
But you also have, you have more rebellions, more documented rebellions and more organized societies and state societies. So let me get to my news. So, looking at Jamaica, they had a whole like maroon wars. It was a war to the point where, again, we don't see very often where colonial powers make treaties with small states and bands. Of course, they immediately did not uphold those
treaties.
And I guess by definition, neither did we, because we kept freeing our folks. And that's where it got to a very sensitive point in history, where they got so large that they were not entirely able to defend So the treaties at some point did come down to like, okay, we'll stop doing X, Y, and Z.
If we all stop doing X,
If
Y,
we
and
stop,
Z.
yeah. So it kind of, they did, slow down that type of like very heavy warfare resistance as the treaties came about. But mostly, they were on that type of time.
Okay.
There is some history of post 1700s into 1800s where the conflicts between the maroon communities and the government were more about, in some situations, like again, history is very complex, very nuanced. Not everyone's perfect. You're gonna have some situations where they're going about in assisting in quelling other rebellions on plantations, and that's a harsh history in Jamaican. It's a sense of history in Jamaican lore as well. But I also would argue that is a product of colonial or the white man meddling in with the true story of what happened. Because I don't think it's that just like they just helped out eventually. I think it was much more of a sinister plot,
Okay.
for sure. I wonder how we're doing on time. We also want to talk at, I feel like I haven't said let me put you on enough. Let me put you on. But anyways.
You want to pause real quick so I can go check the time?
No.
No? If it stopped recording, it will.
Oh, well, then you should, that's different.
Yeah, bro. That's why I was like, dang.
I know it could stop recording at some point.
Okay, no, it's still going. Okay. All right. We got good amounts of time. All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah, no. Yes, it can just stop if it get too big, bro.
Maybe we'll cut out this part a little bit. Who knows? So yeah, self-liberated, self-sustainable African-based communities within the America and the Caribbeans in every single country. And really, we're really just highlighting this to again, like putting niggas on that resistance has always been struggle of resistance and self-liberation. Self-sustainability has always been tied to the colonial struggle of in America, what's considered, I guess, more civil rights, but it really is the fight for freedom. It's not. It's not just civil. We don't want the benefit of the doubt from the next white policeman or the next president. We don't want social rights. We're talking about freedom here.
I want some next backhanded agreement.
No, I don't want to be caught up in just a system that's still supporting the same remnants that we're talking about here. Right.
A justice system that supports the criminal sometimes more than the
100% supports the criminal, because again, what they criminalized was wanting to be free. They criminalized creating your own freed society on a land that you colonized. That's what they criminalized. We're talking about like it is real evil, and we're also talking about like the real struggle of Black freedom continuing. And we can't just be like, well, it's America is too much. No, it was too much back then.
I was about to say, no, there's no that. I was about to say it's oh man, they still doing it.
You have a plethora of people would say, I don't really have time for social justice. I don't really have time X, Y, and Z. I don't really have time. And I was like, check your social media hours for the week, gang.
For real.
How much time you spend on Netflix, gang? You don't got time for a little social change, gang?
No.
All right.
Not everyone.
All right. So yeah, looking at when they went through also more archaeological records within some of these Caribbean places. You have different types of geographical areas that were more preserved, X, Y, and Z. But really what you have here is a acknowledgement by the government that didn't happen in America of resistance and self-liberation, because they forced it upon them. They forced them to sign. We forced them to sign treaties.
Okay.
So it's the self-liberation and. So what I was saying is that like the cultural eraser of this part existed and has existed, but these communities still celebrate the signing of these treaties to this day. They're up to 176 years of celebrating these treaties.
But these treaties were made. They were forced, like you just said, right?
In that sense, I'm saying that we forced the treaties.
Oh, we forced. Okay.
Like it's the sense of like the other option was fighting until you get left alone.
Well, yeah. Now I
Right,
would
so-
celebrate the treaty too. Then.
Right. But that's the thing where like they don't acknowledge that celebration because the history's still here. It's not erased.
Oh,
It's literally happened. You
the
can go. And
Americans or
It's just
the
Caribbean. Yeah. So they
Caribbeans,
go
okay.
through and will actually travel to different communities for celebration because it's so vital to acknowledge what's continuing happening, especially in places like Jamaica where you have legacy of colonialism has been different than it is here in the States.
Over there.
Yeah, and you also have the adoption of colonial principles by people who look just like you as well. You know, we have that here in America too, but it's kind of more of usually a othering that happens for us. So it's kind of like those individuals, not my rich ass uncle who's now climbing the corporate ladder and forcing everyone else to. But these communities are still out here celebrating, and what's very interesting is that in the recent hurricane that hit Jamaica, the maroon communities were really coming through and helping other communities because the government wasn't really on that as much as the government should have been. And oftentimes the government of tourist-led countries often prioritize money towards those places that bring in money, the actual communities. So these maroon communities have been going out and really, really changing what it means to come together, hold a community together, not just out of necessity, but be out of legacy. And that's why I wanted to strengthen, not out of necessity, out of legacy. And the challenge for me is to begin creating that community out of legacy, not necessity. Because necessity has already existed, we just have accepted and been assimilated to these new norms of working my life away. I need to pay for water, So we are out of legacy, looking at these communities that are still here to adopt something for our own, to begin moving from that heavy state dependency that is currently existing in our community. The last place that I had wanted to look at was two places, Haiti and Brazil. Brazil had definitely, I would say, outside of the Americas, and then I think if you really crunch the numbers, I'd have to really think about that. There was the most amount of enslaved Africans. It was Brazil for one country compared to America is divided by states, but against the whole America probably had more over here than Brazil. But Brazil had the second most. But Brazil also has the Amazon rainforest.
That's true. That is huge.
That is
a large part of the area.
Legitimately not completely, as there are large parts of that is still untouched. And there are still unexplored. There are still tribes that have not been contacted in that space. So in Brazil, similar to Virginia, they ran to them Johns that never came out type. Never came out. And that was an interesting part where it was like they don't know. They legit can't go explore it themselves. They literally cannot. They cannot find it.
That's actually super smart. I was say, well, we've been in this rainforest for our entire lives. Well, we're gonna go live in there then.
What I think is interesting is I would love to just with like a crystal ball peek in and see how that has what's been preserved from that point, whether it's the language, culture, tradition, what's been preserved to there. Because there's probably like a bunch of cool syncretisms between indigenous, European, and African belief systems that are just existing out there. What did I say? Haiti, the Haitian Revolution. The Haitian Revolution is a very sensitive topic for me because it's one of those things where Haiti won the revolution, and then the entire world demonified them for it. They ostracized them from global trade to the point that Haiti still is now recovering,
resources
to the point that they got their freedom. And France gave them a bill.
Yeah.
And said, you got to buy that. You owe us money.
For gaining your freedom.
Because, no, not for gaining your freedom. I didn't pay for my freedom. I beat the hell out of you for my freedom, right? And now it's like they came back, and they were like, we're losing so much money from not enslaving you
That you owe us.
that you now owe us money. Imagine the ego. Imagine the ego.
Get off my land. They won it again, boys.
And I kid you not, it was our lifetimes until Haiti was like, no.
Yeah.
Because you don't do that, you're not allowed to be part of the global trade. You get sanctions put on you. Look at Cuba.
Yep.
They still have the sanctions on them. You have travel bans still. And then, you have the DR right next there. This is a whole different conversation. Anyways, yeah, we wanted to put y'all onto that shit, bro.
Is that how you?
It's been a day, man. It's been a very tumultuous month already. Put y'all onto that shit, bro. We really encourage y'all to go out there and look into some Black Marronage. Tag us on some new stuff that you learned for this Black History Month. Find some new communities that we didn't talk about in America, Caribbean, or literally throw a dart at a map in the Caribbean. Look at that island and research their self-liberated resistance.
There are so many communities, so many subcultures and languages, so many different tribes,
there's
so many
historiographic
different things.
Maps. Like there's a lot more history and research done by not ancestors, done by the descendants of those enslaved community members and descendants of those freedmen communities who then went and educated themselves have done a very good job of going back and doing the proper history. You even have, even like Franz Fanon's example, someone who went from a Caribbean island and went off and did massive achievements in academia and political advancing their community. I'm gonna stop talking because I'm very tired.
I thought you was ending.
I was there, but then I remembered that I wanted to talk about that. There are cases. You don't have to just go and .com. There's case studies. There's archaeological record of these communities done a lot better than it does in America. So I was gonna say it's easier to go in the Caribbean and do it. It's not as much.
Plug the resources into the YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. It's just not. It's not as. It's a bit easier doing the research in the Caribbean than America.
Okay.
It's been more.
Okay.
Backed by academia in that sense. Yeah.
Is that your episode?
Sure, I guess so. Yeah. Welcome to the Smokehouse, man. Come back next week as we talk about Patch's Marronage community.